Hey, how's it going? Long time no see. Happy holidays. Life's crazy, but I want to talk about some of the books that I've read in the past half year, something like that. So I just finished my semester, and this semester I took a Shakespeare class, and we read a lot of Shakespeare. So I reread Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet, and then I read Taming of the Shrew, Othello, Merchant of Venice, Julius Caesar, and Antony and Cleopatra. So that really doesn't seem as much now that I think about it, but it felt like a lot over the course of the semester. Out of this list, my favorites that I read were probably The Merchant of Venice, which surprised me quite a bit, and Hamlet. I liked Hamlet the first time I read it, and I like it again. It's definitely the longest Shakespeare play that I think I've read, but I think what makes it different is what makes it special. It's kind of just a big hot mess, but I think it's a good one. I also took a women's autobiographical writing class, and some of the things that we read in there I really enjoyed, so I'm going to talk about my favorites right now. First, we read Jane Eyre, which surprised me so much. I honestly thought that this was going to be inaccessible, kind of a little bit not my style. I read Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, but I hadn't read anything by Charlotte Bronte. So I was excited, but also intimidated. It's kind of long, so for the first book of the semester, it was a little bit of a daunting task to take on. However, I absolutely love this. I love that you can see Charlotte Bronte's voice through the character of Jane at times, and that contrast actually does become clear, and it's more of like a diatribe from Jane than like included into her. There is a distinct difference between the author's voice and the character's voice, and I actually found that fascinating. Around the beginning of the book, I got strong Harry Potter vibes, so it kind of made me question whether J.K. Rowling maybe drew a little bit of inspiration from Jane Eyre when coming up with Harry Potter's character, because Jane definitely lives under the stairs in her aunt's house. It's been a while since I've read it now, but yeah, in a place where she's unwanted, under the stairs. I'm just saying, seems a little fishy to me, but maybe that's just me. The next book that I really enjoyed was Journal of a Solitude by May Sarton. I never heard of May Sarton before I read this, and I had no idea what it was going to be like, but the title Journal of a Solitude seemed oddly apt for the times that we're in right now. I do wonder why my professor picked this, because this is a voluntary solitude. This is May Sarton's journal, and she's written many journals, but this is just one of them, and I think one of her most famous ones, in which she talks about a period of her life where she spends writing in a house by herself in a remote location. I forget exactly where, but it's somewhere in the north in the United States. I really liked May Sarton's writing style, which is something that some of my classmates disagreed with, because I think it's really up to personal taste, but I thought it was very peaceful, calming. It's very stream of consciousness because it's a journal. So she'll talk about very random things, and I think that's another reason my classmates didn't like it. So if you're not someone who's looking for a plot or some overarching idea, something that ties everything together, then this does not have that. It's more of like a collection of reflections that May Sarton goes through and develops on. That's it. But personally, I really love this. There's some photos included throughout, I think taken by a friend. This is one example, but it was kind of cool to see those, and yeah, this was great. The next thing that I have is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, and this was, I think, hands down my favorite thing that I read this semester. If you haven't read this, you absolutely should. I think everybody should read this. It is well worth the read. So if you don't know, this is Maya Angelou's first autobiography. And I've read other things by Maya Angelou before this. I've read several of her poetry collections and Letter to My Daughter. So this was the first actual autobiography that Maya Angelou wrote. I'll probably butcher this a little bit, but I think the story goes something like Maya was very reluctant to write her story, her life story in a book. But I think it was her brother and someone else who was very close to her urged her to write her autobiography because they felt that it was important and something that should be heard. Maya didn't want to because she thought it wouldn't be something that she could make artistic and turn into like a creative work rather than just an account of her life. So these people challenged her and said, I bet you can't, like, show me that you can and prove it to yourself that you can. And so she did, and she wrote this, and then she went on to write, I think, 7 more autobiographies, or maybe this is one of 7. I don't know what else to say about it other than it was wonderful. I have 3 other books that I really appreciated reading for this class, but they weren't like standouts that I would rank above the others. They were just solid works that if anybody's really interested in reading, then I would recommend them. And so we have The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. And this is not necessarily an autobiography by Cisneros, but it's a collection of vignettes that she wrote, and she calls them creative reimaginings, I think. But they're told from a childlike perspective. It's a very interesting and specific look into moments from a childhood. Some very small memories, others a little bit more thematic, but it's a very, very quick read, and it's highly acclaimed for a reason. Then there's Woman Warrior by Maxine Hong Kingston. This is also a collection of kind of vignettes, kind of like more short stories in my opinion, and I believe it's also semi-autobiographical. I think it's mainly autobiographical, but it's definitely embellished, fictionalized a little bit, and I think that's what makes it really nice. I liked some of the stories in here more than other ones. I really, really loved White Tigers in here, which is kind of a play on the Fa Mulan story. I think this was a really touching story and a really representative story in terms of Asian American identity. This was a solid read for sure. And finally, I have A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, which I feel like is a staple in terms of feminist literature and definitely in terms of autobiographical literature. If you don't know, this is kind of like an extended essay by Virginia Woolf that I think she presented somewhere afterwards. And her basic thesis is that a woman needs money and a room of one's own in order to write fiction. And it's a very specific thesis that she both expands upon and narrows down alternately throughout the story. Well, not the story, the narration. What makes this unique is that it's very stream of consciousness in the highest sense, because there's absolutely pretty much no dialogue. It'll just be a block of text of her thinking one thought to another, to another, to another. And it's hard to follow at times because it makes it a little bit dense. It's also what makes it wonderful and unique at the same time. So it's an interesting paradox in my mind in that way, that I love it and hate it at the same time. It was hard to get through, but I appreciated it in the end. And then finally, I have some books that I actually managed to read for fun throughout the semester. Not really sure how I did that, but I like to thank audiobooks and me persistently choosing to read for fun instead of doing my work occasionally. So first I want to talk about Becoming by Michelle Obama, which I listened to on audiobook and was a fabulous experience because Michelle Obama speaking her life story into your ears is incredible. That's self-explanatory. I really, really loved this, and there's not much more I can say about it that probably hasn't been said by 5 million other people. And I don't know if I've ever heard someone dislike this book because it encompasses all of Michelle Obama's life so far. It goes from her childhood to her time in a law firm, her struggling and deciding her career choices after that, and in, of course, becoming the First Lady and navigating the White House. So a lot. I think her perspective is just so remarkably unique that I feel so lucky that I got to hear her story from her and that she chose to tell it. I also read Crooked Kingdom. I think I finished this before the semester even started though. So maybe I talked about this before, but I'm not sure. But it was fabulous. Maybe even better than Six of Crows. It's very character focused, which is what I love about it, because each of the characters is so compelling that I don't mind hearing just about them. Like, yes, please tell me this random memory that Kaz has and I will cherish it. I feel like this series, this duology, I guess, is definitely one that I will return to and reread parts of in the future, which should be easy because I marked a billion passages. So in October, I decided that I wanted to read a spooky book, and I'm really not that good at reading scary things, watching scary movies, anything like that. I think I've seen like 2 scary movies in my whole life, and I just get scared really easily. So I read Bad Girls Don't Die by Katie Allender, which is a very young adult book. I think it's probably the most like cookie cutter thriller, horror, I don't know, book that you could read. I think it definitely pulled on almost every stereotypical horror trope that there is. You know, we got the dolls, the rotten eggs smell, the cold, and there was a lot. That being said, I was scared. I got scared many, many times while reading this. I don't know if that says that I am just a huge chicken or that it was done well. I think it's just that I'm a huge chicken. I feel so neutral towards this book because it did what I wanted it to do. It scared me. But was it a good book? No, I don't think it was a good book at all. But it did what I wanted it to do. So yes. Next, I read the book that I've had on my shelf for the longest time, and I don't even know where I got it from. I think it was given to me like as a child, and I didn't read it till now, but I felt like I needed to because it was the oldest book on my shelf, and that's Witch and Wizard by James Patterson. And I know I said that Bad Girls Don't Die was not a good book, but this is really not a good book. If that was bad, then this is really bad. And of course, this is personal opinion. If anybody loves this book, then props to them. I listened to this on audiobook, and I was really excited about it because one of the narrators was Elijah Wood for the male character. And I was like, okay, yes, Frodo reading me an audiobook sounds perfect. However, that didn't really help. First you need a good book, and then you need a good narrator, and step one failed miserably. I think this is James Patterson's attempt at young adult, because I know that he writes a lot of adult books, and maybe those are great. Maybe those are his, magnus opus, what he should be doing all the time. But this was not good. I'm not going to say any more about this. Finally, I just recently read The Coral Thief by Rebecca Stott. Yeah, Rebecca Stott. And this was great. I really, really enjoyed this one. It is, you could say it's a mystery, but it's not really a mystery. It's mostly an atmospheric story, I would say. It follows our main character, Daniel Connor, who is traveling to Paris to study at the, a lot of this is in French, so I don't really know how to say anything, to study at the Jardin des Plantes, which is a guess. And he comes there on a coach, and this is in the 18th century? 1815. Takes place in 1815. So in 1815, he's taking a coach to Paris, and he has like coral specimens and like letters that he has to deliver to this one guy. And then there's a woman on his coach, and he talks to her for a bit, falls asleep, and then she steals his things. So he's kind of screwed. And so he has to all of a sudden figure out where she is, convince her to give him his things back. He goes to the police, and he gets mixed up in this whole thing, and then romance ensues. Intrigue ensues. This whole mystery plot comes out of nowhere. I really, really enjoyed it. The only things I did enjoy there were these random inserts of like what Napoleon was doing at the time, which I get it. I think that Rebecca Stott was just trying to solidify the historical context of when this was occurring. But to me, it didn't really add anything to the story, and it kind of just felt unnecessary. But other than those, I thought this was great. Oh, and also the fact that Daniel would like randomly say things that were just really strange, but there were only a couple of those, so I can ignore them. Hey there, it's Caitlin from 20 Minutes Later. I forgot some stuff. I also read Heart of a Trail and Beauty of Darkness by Mary E. Pearson, which are the final two books in the trilogy following The Kiss of Deception, and I really enjoyed these two. I think they're really fun. Were they perfect? No, I don't think so. And I also read Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and I loved it. I think it was wonderful. I listened to the audiobook, and it's kind of more of an extended essay. I really, really like Coates' use of metaphor and the way that he's able to stretch it and turn it into so many different things in a small passage. I think that it's really incredible. So this book deserves a hype. Yes, quality stuff. I'm currently reading My True Love Gave to Me, which is edited by Stephanie Perkins, but it's a collection of holiday short stories that I'm sure many people have heard of because it was popular back in like 2015, I think. Which is a very long time ago now. But I'm really enjoying it. I have one story left, and I have to go finish it because it's due to the library today. So I'm gonna go do that now. So thanks for watching. I'm glad I got to talk about what I've read for the past many months. Anyways, happy holidays.